This is an SM Media production. Hi everyone and welcome to episode 10 of SM Media's Road to Cheltenham. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host as always. Calum's joining me as always. It's a bit grim in it, the world right now. Thank God we've got racing to keep us kind of motivated and excited over the next few weeks.
Yeah, indeed. It's certainly grim. Lockdown 3 now or something like that. I have to keep an eye on whether these Irish horses will definitely come over.
Yeah.
I'm too worried about it right now. But yeah, fingers crossed.
What are we thinking? Did we having a good new year on the gambling front?
It's been quite quiet. There's a lot been called off, and most of it's kind of been all weather racing recently, which is not my cup of tea. So largely left it alone at the moment.
Yeah. We've got one question before we get into the recap. Now, I met one of my friends who watches the show religiously. He asked us to pick a lucky 15 for him for the festival right now. So we'll have two selections each. We'll go winner each way.
I'll leave that to you. You can decide.
Let's go one. We'll give four winners. You want to give your first selection?
Okay, it's for an early bank on the board. Probably Shishkin in the Arkle. Can't see it being beaten. I know it's an attractive price, but you want lucky 15s to kind of start off with a sound start. You want your first leg in, and I think he should easily oblige.
Yeah, I'm going to go. My first pick's going to be Galvin in the National Hunt Chase. I think he can still give it 5-1. I think his experience will pay off. I'm a big fan of Galvin. I think the only thing that worries me is the trip. But again, every horse going for this race doesn't really have the trip in its favour. So it's an unknown. But again, I think Galvin, the form of last year's Post Brothers works out really well. He didn't finish far behind Imperial, who's obviously went now to Grade 1 level. So he's suggesting me he's not that far behind that. He's been impressive. He's won at Cheltenham already this year. So I'm going to put Galvin up at 5-1 for my first pick in lucky 15. What's the second one?
Probably Billoway and the Fox Hunters. He's about 5-1 on Friday. I just think he's been earmarked for this for quite a while. As early as last year when he finished second. He looks a better horse this year. And the race, it doesn't look too deep either. So given that he improved and the rest maybe of a similar standard or maybe even regress, I think he's got an obvious favourites chance in the Fox Hunters chase.
Mm-hmm. You want to hear my second pick?
Go on.
Epatont, 9-4 champion hurdle. You can get 9-4 somewhere. 9-4. Mm-hmm. I think it's rock solid. I think, you can forgive her run. I think we now know officially she was in season over Christmas, which again for a mare, never ever a good sign. And Apple's Jade was in season during the champion hurdle. We saw how that panned out for her. She will bounce back from that. Last year we didn't see her between Christmas and Cheltenham. I think we will see her. I think she's potentially lined up for the Contenders hurdle. I'm not going to tip her up in my Ante Post Picks just yet because I think I might have a wee double next week for you because I'm waiting on one coming to the goods this weekend. So I'm going to put up Epatont at 9-4. I just don't see the champion hurdle being a deep race. Like I know we've potentially got Honeysuckle, Concertista could potentially go there, but she's still the best horse in the race. She's still the best. She's a champion hurdle winner. Last year you can't. On what she did last year and what she done in the Fighting Fifth, I don't think you can go off her.
No, but there is a chink in her armour slightly after last time in season is obviously a valid excuse. It's the first time it's happened to her, so it's hard to judge when the cycle stops and when it ends.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's still the market are inclined to forgive her, so I can see why most people will be as well. She's still the obvious favourite on everyone's best form.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, and that is our lucky 15 so far for the Cheltenham Festival. And let's move into the recap. Wasn't a busy week. Obviously, a few meetings get called off, as we mentioned, but we'll start off on Wednesday in Limerick. A horse called Staker Wallace won a Hunter's Chase. 16-1 down places for the Fox Hunters. Travelled strong, jumped. I thought he jumped really well, which is a typical end of boulder horse that just jumps travels well. What do you think? Do you think he's a threat to your beloved Billoway?
He was fourth last year, which suggests no. When he was well fancied and ridden by Jamie Codd, it was about 13-2 he went off. It was a maiden hunter's chase, which is barely better than your standard point to point, I would think.
Yeah.
And then he was very non-committal about going to Cheltenham with this horse as well. So I wouldn't be quaking my boots if I was a Billoway backer on the back of that.
We'll move on to Thursday in Punchestown. A horse I really, really liked, I thought was really impressive, was Riviere de Tel. I believe that's how you pronounce it. 20s for the Triumph, 4 years old. 16s though for the Mares Novice, which is potentially where she could line up because of a certain Zani here who's owned by the same, who've got the same owners. Gordon Elliott was raving about her. I think she's brilliant. I think she's a really, really exciting horse.
It was impressive. You could argue that it was 16s is a bit of value. I do think she's quite hard to place.
Yeah.
These 4-year Mares Novices, I don't think they've got a great record in the Mares Novice hurdle race. I mean, Concertista won its second season novice effectively last year. With these mares, you do kind of need a lot of time on your side and to get better. So, but and then the first impression that she made, it really was quite startling. I don't know if we'll go easy on her or step her up quite quickly. It's interesting to see where she goes next, I think.
Definitely. We'll move on to New Year's Day, Friday in Tremoor. A certain horse came back, Album Photo. What were your thoughts before we get into my thoughts? What did you think?
He did what he always does, doesn't he? I mean, it's a tried and tested route. He beat Acapella Bourgeois by 19 lengths. It's what Album Photo does. I mean, initially Connections thought it wasn't that impressive, it wasn't that good. I think in first viewing you would probably tend to agree because his first circuit he wasn't travelling particularly well. I didn't think his jumping was maybe a bit ordinary at times, but once he got upsides, he did put his best work in the finish. His best jump was towards the end, and he hit the line really well. There's probably plenty to work on. Given the rest haven't done much in behind, I think we're in a similar position to where we were last season in that he sets a standard. It's a mid 170 standard. It's a decent standard. It's not an insurmountable one, but from what we've seen in behind, he's the right favourite, and he's the one they've got to beat all again. He's the most solid option, I think, at the moment.
I agree with you. I agree 100%. I think when we look at his first Gold Cup, he was a poor jumper then. He didn't jump well there, like even then. So his progression as jumping has been good. I thought it was comfortable. Again, Acapella Bourgeois. We're not going to suggest Acapella Bourgeois as a contender to Album Photo in the slightest. But 19 lengths, I thought, giving him weight, I thought it was impressive. I don't particularly agree with people saying it was very, very ordinary. I think it was more a case of just getting into his rhythm in the first kind of half of the race, and then the second half of the race we saw. It was only 2 mile 5. The second half of the race, I think we saw the real Album Photo. I think he gradually progressed into the race. It was a comfortable win. Do you think 7-2 for the Gold Cup now is short, or are we going with it now, considering what we've seen so far from the other contenders?
It's the right price for me. I think it's fair enough. I think it's a combination of Album Photo of just being the best, and the rest haven't quite proved themselves yet against him. But it's hard to prove yourself against him when you only really see him twice a season. And I think that's why most people, as a dual Gold Cup winner, are slightly finding it hard to warm to this horse because he doesn't do anything flashy. There's nothing, when you look at him in the naked eye, there's nothing obvious that screams he's a dual Gold Cup winner.
Yeah, exactly.
He just gets it done. He's very functional. In his novice days, he wasn't. He was quite erratic. He fell in an RSA, of course. But he's certainly talented and solid, but you just don't quite feel it with, other dual cup horses of the past when you compare them to top class chasers. I don't think he captures the public's imagination as much as you'd expect from a dual Gold Cup horse.
Right, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. All right. Firstly, if I was to give you £100 right now to pick the winner of the Gold Cup, and you can't say Delta Work, who would it be?
It would have to be album photo, and probably by default. It really would be. I think he was about this price, about 4-1 last year, and people were kind of humming and hawing and waiting to see, well, is something going to be better? Is something going to come up? And in the end, the answer was no. The race was run against him last year. It was really slow. He still won. The first year he won it, it was really fast. He still won. So he ticks all the boxes. He's very solid. Is it spectacular? No, but he sets the standard, and he's the right favourite.
And second question, obviously with the Savills Chase last week and the King George, would album photo that ran at Tremor would he have won those 2 races if he was in them?
I don't think he would have, mainly because of the way he's trained. He'd be trained to maybe improve by half a stone or something like that. They went really hard, so it would test him. I think he would probably have finished. He would have been in the mix. Certainly, he would have been in that blanket finish for the top 3. But I do think he would probably run a part of like a melon sort of effort. I would. He's campaigned differently, so it's hard to judge. But given the way he's campaigned, he wouldn't have won on the day because he wouldn't have been trained for the day. Mm-hmm. But if he was in full form and rated his 175 rating, then yeah, I think he would have won.
Mm-hmm. But we'll move on to Saturday in Sandown, where we had the Tolworth Hurdle. We saw Metier win that, now into 7s for the Supreme. He was very good. Harry Fry's got a very, very good novice here. The only 2 things I would have about it is, firstly, I think he'll certainly need to improve his jumping. Although he jumped pretty good, but I still think to beat a horse that appreciates it, and if horses like that, he'll need to jump better. And secondly, do we think the form lines up well? Because the only horse in it of any note was Shake 'Em Up Harry, who was second last year to Shishkin, but behind that it was a poor Grade 1.
Yeah, it wasn't the strongest race. The Tolworth, it's a kind of proving ground for British horses if they want to go the Supreme route. Another slight concern about Metier is his wins are all on very deep ground. I'm not sure if you'd see him that effectively in the spring. Visually, though, it was a very impressive performance. He did travel like a really smart horse. Harry Fry is certainly raving about him, and he's had a very good few novices of late as well that have run to a high level. Mm-hmm. I don't think the Supreme is that good a race this year either, the way it's shaping up. So he's entitled to be a player. At 7-1, it's a bit short for me, though. I think I'll try and look elsewhere at this stage.
Yeah, we'll touch on your Supreme pick later on in the show, but do you think Metier is the best of the British so far?
No, I don't. I think My Drogo might be better.
Right, okay. Right. We'll move on to Sunday. Last horse to mention, Fairy House, was a horse called Royal Koala. She was very, very impressive. 8-1 now for the Mayor's Novice Hurdle. We'll mention Hook Up and Delvino, who ran in the race. They were very disappointing. But Royal Koala, what do you think of her?
Very smart. Potentially very, very smart. Yeah, 10-1's a fair price. I wouldn't knock anyone out that. It was a really, really stylish performance, I thought.
Do you think, though, that obviously the problem here is that there's obviously Willie Mullins' record in the race could potentially be off-putting for her?
It could be, but she could potentially come up against Gallows, the favourite for this race next month.
Yeah,
and that would tell us a lot more, and it clearly gives an indication that the yard think a lot of her as well. So yeah, it's always interesting when perhaps smaller yards and smaller ownerships have a big chance. We saw with French Assil how good he was as a Triumph contender, and he was swiftly bought up by the Donnellys and sent to. So once they're smart, they're not slow in moving for them, and the same thing could happen here. But I think Connections will be happy to keep things as they are and take on one of Willie Mullins' top notchers and see where they are for the big spring festivals. Yeah,
definitely. And that was your recap for the week. We'll move on to our preview for a race at the Cheltenham Festival, and this week we're going to preview the Close Brothers Mares Hurdle. Now, again, this has been won by some amazing horses in the past few years. Quevega, again, one of my favourite horses, 6-time winner of the race, with the likes of Benny the Jew, Honeysuckle. We've seen a lot of good horses win this race. Let's look at the contenders for this year's race. We have joint favourites at 3-1, Honeysuckle and Concertista. Benny the Jew at 6-1, Roxana and Dame de Company at 10-1 and 16-1 Bar. Callum, what do you think of this race so far? Does it look like the horses at the top of the market are the main players?
Concertista looks like the challenger to Honeysuckle, the defending champion, with Benny to do a high-class horse in her own right is third favourite. I think they're the clear top three. Roxana wouldn't be without an each-way chance if it probably turned really heavy and there was a pace burn up. She has won it in 2019 when it collapsed, so she could do likewise again. I think she merits a bit of respect.
How certain are we that Honeysuckle, Concertista and Benny the Jew are all going to turn up here?
Not very. I think out of the three, I think Concertista is probably the most nailed on to be here. If I was training Honeysuckle and if I was owning her, I would send her to the Champion Hurdle at the moment.
I think that as well. But
Benny to do obviously has a Mare's Chase option, and we haven't seen her all season yet. So
let's hope she's going Mare's Chase, because I've got her at 11-2.
Hope she's going somewhere. I'd like to.
I think, yeah, I know it's getting quite. I think we could see her kind of end of January, hopefully. But again, do we look at the likes of this race and think it's Mullins dominated? Are we looking outside the box for anything else? Like Dame de Company is one I want to touch on with you. Obviously, one of your best winners last year. Could she potentially line up here?
She could, but she's rated 148, which is traditionally not enough. And Nikki Henderson revealed, I think, New Year's Day that she has schooling over fences and the plans to go fences with her, and maybe Mare's Chase. I don't think she's far away from running. So you're looking for one run for her, and then if she's good enough, go to graded company in Mare's Chases.
Do you have anything that can a bigger price that's interesting? I've got a couple, but I'll ask you first what you've got. A bigger price?
Only one, I think, for me. El File was third last year, around 16-1. I think she's 25-1 this year. We haven't seen a lot of her. I haven't seen her at all, actually, since she was third. She ran quite well. It was a really good race last year. She proved best of the rest, finishing ahead of the likes of Roxana, for instance. She's trained by Willie Mullins. I don't know what the plan is with her, though, if she's just going to come back here or not. And I think she's probably overpriced to maybe do the same thing, maybe snatch minor place money, something like that.
I've got a couple to mention. I want to mention, first of all, that 16-1 Burning Victory, winner of last year's Triumph Hurdle. Haven't seen her as of yet, but again, she stayed on pretty well to win that Triumph Hurdle, so that suggests to me that she might appreciate a trip like this. She could potentially be one to watch. And another one at 33-1 is a horse we haven't seen either since last year. Didn't run at Cheltenham last year. La Marquise at 33-1, remember her?
Yeah.
She was very, very hotly tipped for last year's Mare's Novice. Didn't run. The only race we saw last year, I think she won about 10 lengths, but she dismounted just after the line, which suggested a lack of experience. So hopefully we maybe see her again. But if she could be potentially kind of line up soon, she could potentially be one to watch at a big price. But what do you kind of think, like kind of stats wise? Obviously, every week we ask you for the stats for a race like this. What are we looking for here if we're looking for the winner?
First of all, from a betting point of view, if you like a horse, I would recommend tracking it and seeing it have an entry in something in a race like this, because going through a lot of these in the market, a lot of them haven't run yet.
Yeah.
And if you spot an entry for something, even if it doesn't take it up, it's a clue as to where they're going, i.e. hurdles or chases.
Yeah.
And particularly with mares these days, with an expanded programme, it's quite hard for anti-post punters in particular to kind of figure out where they're going to go. So if there is a preliminary entry for them, take that as a massive positive, and then maybe you can steal a bit of a price. As stats wise, it's been kind of two races really. The Quevega years and then the modern era for this. There's only been one winning favourite in the last 6 renewals of this,
Right, okay.
Traditionally, when this race started up, it was like a Mullins odds-on bonanza. Favourites would go in left, right, and centre. Quevega would turn up every year and win it. It's not been the case recently. 9 out of 12 winners have been rated 150 plus.
Right, okay.
So class does tend to come to the fore here anyway.
Yeah.
9 out of 12 winners won last time out as well. And even though one winning favourite in the last 6 renewals, 11 of the 12 winners have came from the top 3 in the betting. So it does pay to stick with the obvious, I suppose. 4 of the last 6 winners were age 7.
Right, okay.
7 seems to be the magic number at the moment. The first race was in 2008. There's only been 2 British winners of it.
Roxana and the first one of... Yeah, the first one was, I'm pretty sure it was Donald McCain, but I forget the name of it.
White Oak.
White Oak, yeah, remember that.
McCain and Maguire. Ireland have won 11 of the 13. Mullins has won 9 of them. So Quevega 6, Cleanse Melody, Vroom Vroom Mag, and Benny the Do.
Yeah. What do we kind of think as well? We're gonna touch on my pick, but the big thing here is what's going to turn up. And again, how impressed have you been with Concertista since you kind of, obviously she was probably the most impressive winner last year at the festival, but her step up to kind of the mid trip's been very, very good. But do you think she's a very, very good chance here?
Yeah, she would be my bet at the moment. If I was having it, if it was run tomorrow and even all of these turned up, and I think she's a huge danger. She's very progressive. She's improving. She's versatile over 2 miles, 2.5 miles, a fast pace, a slow pace. Wherever she is, prominent from the back. She seems able to do it all at the moment. And given Epatante has struggled a little bit, I would be quite keen on Honeysuckle going champion hurdle at the moment.
We know how I feel about Honeysuckle. I think Honeysuckle is different class. Wasn't overly impressive in the Hamptons Grace when she came back, but we're going to see her in the Irish Champion. If she wins the Irish Champion better than she did last year, I think it's a no-brainer. She'll go for the champion hurdle. Whether, again, it's down. I think though last year, if she'd jumped well in the Irish Champion, she would have went for the champion hurdle. But she was very, very impressive at the festival. I think it was one of the rides of the week by Rachel Blackmore. It's the same thing. I don't want her to line up here. I want her to test herself in the champion hurdle against a horse because I think she's better than Epatante.
Look, I think she's rated 159, so she's £2 inferior to Epatante, but she will be getting a £7 allowance against the boys if she goes to champion hurdle route. Last year, I think the Mayor's Hurdle kind of fell into her lap a bit. I think the Mullins team messed up their tactics slightly. They went far too slow out front. The second favourite, Stormy Island, actually, second string of Mullins, Stormy Island, that accidentally boxed in Benny to do at the worst possible time, and Honeysuckle nipped in the rail and stole 3 lengths. She ended up winning by half a length. I think a truly run Mayor's Hurdle, which would suit Concertista. If Benny Dadu goes here as well, Mullins will have like the likes of Elfile in the race possibly. He will ensure that there will be no hiding place. That stamina will be tested. And Benny Dadu was always closing in the line. Only lost by half a length. Probably was about 3 or 4 lengths down coming into last.
Yeah.
And I think a strong pace. So the way the champion hurdle is shaping up is suiting Honeysuckle more than the hurdle for me.
That's what I think.
I'd be more worried about Concertista than I would be with Epatante right now.
Yeah, I think it's the exact same as last year in my mind. Like even last year, I was saying Honeysuckle champion hurdle. The Irish Dublin Racing Festival will be the big clue here, but you're going for Concertista as your pick.
Yeah, the Mayor's Hurdle, it would certainly be Concertista at the moment.
Yeah, I'm going to side with Honeysuckle as always, but again, if I can't see past Concertista right now. I think Concertista is very, very impressive. And that was our look at the Close Brothers Mayor's Hurdle. We'll look at what's coming up this week, and we have a very busy weekend lined up here. On Saturday, we will see the rescheduled Welsh National. Secret Reprieve leads the market 7-2. Are you still not a Secret Reprieve fan, Callum?
No, not the price, because of the race or the nature of the Welsh Grand National, I don't think I can take anything at 7-2. Although putting it back by 2 weeks will be a help for those who ran in the trial. It's a wee bit more recovery time.
Yeah.
He's really exciting. He's unexposed, and if he handles it, he could dot up. But at the price, not for me. I think I'll stick with the two that I originally had in the Two Amigos and Prime Venture. Proven course and distance. Solid enough horses, and they're both double figures at the moment. So I would rather take two against the field, though.
Definitely. We'll move on to the finale juvenile hurdle, which is also rescheduled from the 27th. This is interesting because, again, we do not... Gordon Elliott's got Dufflecoat and Calixios entered.
Yes.
They're not turning up, are they?
Very unlikely.
Yeah, unless there's severe changes to the travel ban, which I sincerely doubt. I don't think they're going.
No, and I think even with Cheltenham in mind, I do think punters have to be alert to this now.
I think that as well. Yeah.
Prospect of it all. We're in a lockdown till mid-February, maybe the end of February.
Could we see the festival put back because of this?
No, I don't think there's a room in the calendar for it. I doubt it's not quite easy. It's not as if you move off a one-off event. You know,
Yeah.
There's other race courses and tracks and meetings that you'd have to. I mean, the Grand National didn't go ahead last year. I don't think people entry would be overly impressed if that happened. So it just shuffles the whole thing back, and it might affect the flat season as well. So I don't think that's the way out of it. I think I wouldn't be. I would be very confident that the Irish horses will turn up. But given Gordon Elliott and Willie Mullins send about 50 horses each, I wouldn't be surprised if they were drawing up kind of auxiliarist, kind of backup lists and thinking, right, okay, who do we take and who do we leave behind if we're limited to 20, 25, 30 horses instead of 50? So I think the logistics of it are going to be difficult for the Irish to come over. I think it won't be a problem for the horses. The Irish government, I think they're meeting this week to whether or not extend this travel ban across to Britain. It's expected to be extended. I think it's all about getting the staff there. They managed a way to do it for Royal Ascot with a streamlined team for Aidan O'Brien.
Yeah.
I think he sent certain staff there, and they were kind of based there, and just had a small team there. The question for me is how many Irish horses can come over, not if they come over.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's all up in the air, but you have to monitor it now, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Even if the Gordon Elliott horses were to turn up, I would still side with Nazalam at 11-8 for Gary and Jamie Moore. Reminds me so much of Goshen last year. Not in it, but I think he's a better jumper than Goshen. He could be anything.
He could be Goshen, or his form could be nothing.
Yeah.
So I think 11-8 for which is a grade 1 is a bit risky. You've got Adagio in behind, who's a rated 40 horse. If you don't think the Irish horses are coming up, I would rather have him maybe at an early price at 6-1 rather than the Salam at 11-8. But yeah, you can see Gary Moore's horse going odds on once Calixios and Dufflecoat are forced to be taken out. Yeah,
definitely. We'll move on to Kempton. We've got a couple of races to mention. We have the Slovenia Conti Chase, where we will see the return of the Ryanair Chase favourite Imperial Aura. Sitting about 11-10, Callum, but it might not be as clear cut because we like some Mr. Fisher and Master Tommy Tucker lining up here, and it could be a very exciting race.
It is, yeah. And off all the tracks on the top of my head, I don't think Kempton would be the most obvious one for Imperial Aura. I mind. I think he'd like more of a test at that trip rather than the flat track at Kempton. Maybe something. I think Mr. Fisher might be a little bit more nimble around here. The ground is decent enough for him. I wouldn't be surprised if he managed to turn Imperial over.
Definitely. We'll move on to the Real Keel Hurdle, which is rescheduled from Cheltenham on New Year's Day. We have McFabulous at 5-4. I love McFabulous, and I think this is the race suited for him, this Real Keel Hurdle. Whether it's, again, Kempton could probably be a big reason for that. You've said before you don't think he's a Cheltenham horse. Is conditions made to suit McFabulous here, do you think?
I think they are. I think it's all kind of come in his favour. The fact that this is not being run at Cheltenham now and it's going to Kempton is a positive for him. I think his first real eye-catching performance came at Kempton when he smashed a decent field in his novice days.
Yeah.
He's a young one. He's a progressive one coming up. His run behind the likes of Paisley Park and Time Hill has been boosted since, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So it's strong form, and you'd like him to continue his progression. If he takes another minor step forward here, he should be up to winning this.
Definitely. We'll move on to Wincanton. We have another race rescheduled from New Year's Day at Cheltenham, where we will see the Dipper Novices Chase, Protectorat 11-8 and Hitman 7-4. This is interesting, but again, Protectorat I think's a very, very good novice chase, and I think he'll be very good here.
Yeah, I like him the most as well. I think he's probably better at the trip than Hitman as well. I'm not highly convinced that Hitman wants further at the moment. I think this suits. It's a shame it's not at Cheltenham though. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Sporting John has entered as well for the Philip Hobbs team. It would be interesting to see if he can progress, because he was very disappointing on his debut. It's a nice wee race.
I'm looking forward to it. We have a race on Sunday at Naas, the Lawlers of Naas Novices Hurdle, where we could see my beloved Bob Ollinger running again. This could be a very, very deep race. Like Ashdale Bob entered, wide receiver, Farouk Delane. That could be, if Bob Ollinger wins here, it could be very, very short for the Ballymore.
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite an informative race for sure. Ashdale Bob won quite well in the race at Holy Macapony and Fighter Allen.
Yeah.
Didn't turn up. The collateral form of Gallard Duminils suggests that grade 2 is decent enough form for this. Bob Ollinger's run behind Fernie Hollow looks pretty good in my eyes. This is a big step up from Maiden Company to a grade 1, obviously. But he's a well-touted favourite in an open race. He's probably the one with the most potential here, and yeah, you can see him winning. The other Jessica Harrington horse, Cross Hill, I think is interesting at 14-1 in him. Each way, him back up and trip is definitely of interest, because they dropped him back to 2 miles and he looked more of a Bartlett horse than a Supreme horse. So I think a step up and trip here would suit him, and he might be of interest at a decent price.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going for Bob Ollinger. And that is what's coming up this weekend. We'll move on to our latest selection of Ante Post Picks, and we'll just look at what we've tipped up so far. What I asked you, Callum, about Dussart, your tip for the Supreme. We've read on Nicky Henderson's blog that he's potentially out for the season. A sore one for you?
It is, yeah, disappointing. It's the perils of Ante-Post racing for you. These things happen. Just hope that he's safe and well. He was in the Equine Hospital last time we heard. We haven't had an update. It's very unlikely, so he didn't categorically rule out. So if you like clutching at straws at these things, then if he gets a wee entry at Musselburgh or something, trials day, and does well, and he might come back in time, but it does look very unlikely. I was getting more and more confident by the passing day of him. I think the race was cut up beforehand anyway. I'm still not convinced, but I appreciate it over 2 miles. I think something could be good enough to come and mug him like it happened in the Champion Bumper.
Yeah, you want to jump on my Rico's article bandwagon? It's the same trainer. Could potentially be same jockey.
And he said he wouldn't go there, so
I know. I know.
Not even think if it's cutting up like that.
Yeah, and Nicky Henderson blog has ruined our Supreme Ante-Post Picks. But we'll move on to our selections at Ante-Post Picks this week. We'll start with you, Callum. Where are you going this week?
Strangely enough, keeping the faith with Nicky Henderson. In the Coral Cup, Champagne Platinum at 33-1.
Right, okay.
I think this horse is well handicapped. He's got an entry on Saturday's Lanzarote handicap hurdle at Kempton. He's around 10-1. If he takes that up, then I would be really interested in him for a Coral Cup. He shaped quite well at Newbury last time out from a long break. He was third of 12. He was held up and ridden to kind of come home with a late rattle. And the race up front didn't work out for him at all. He went really too slow. He finished off well. He finished third. He was really keen, pulling hard. He was very fresh. He did really well to finish, I think, about 2 lengths behind. But it's a Nicky Henderson race. He won it last year with Damn the Company, obviously. He's won 4 of the last 11 renewals of it.
Yeah.
It's a handicap race that he likes to target. 3 of the last 4 have been aged 7 of the winners of the Coral Cup. He's just turned 7 in the new year. He's got classic novice chase form, even though he didn't like a fence. The Henderson ran him in races like the Scilly Isles at Sandown.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
He was obviously highly rated. He didn't quite enjoy it. He was joint favourite in the Kim Muir last year. He was 5th. He didn't stay under Derek O'Connor.
Mm-hmm.
So coming back and trip slightly makes sense. The Newbury indication, it shaped like a decent performance, maybe for a Pertont final, maybe for a Coral Cup. The entry here to Kempton, the Lanzarote hurdle, 2 mile 5 round there, is a race that Nicky Henderson has used previously, most notably with William Henry for his Coral Cup winners and in the high rank placed horses. Last year Burrow's Edge won it for him. He went off, I think, 14 to 1 for it, and he finished mid rank, but he did have 4 or 5 in that race last year. I can envisage Champagne Platinum having a chance here. He's off 138 if he runs on Saturday, so you're looking for him to maybe creep up to the 140, 144 bracket, do himself justice again, and that would be a nice mark for a Coral Cup. And I think, given the trainer's record, his history of it, I think 33 to 1 is decent enough value and could half if he does a good job on Saturday. Yeah,
definitely. Great pick. Absolute great pick. Move on to mine. I'm going for another handicap as well. I'm going for the Pertoms final. I have got Moyahead for Dan and Harry Skelton at about 14 to 1. Very, very good horse. Obviously, he's won at the festival before, won a county hurdle. We saw in the qualifier he can stay the trap. I think he finished 3rd. I think there's a great chance. I think the stable's in great form. The horse loves the track. Looks as if he likes the trap. I think it could be written in the stars. I'm not a big fan of the race as a whole. I think it's a race that you're encouraged to do bad in the qualifiers, so you got a better rating. So finishing 3rd, could he potentially get a higher rating than the likes of the Bosses Oscar, who's a ridiculous price at 7 to 1. But Moyahead at 14s, I really, really like him.
Yeah, I wouldn't put off that. In fact, these days that it's British as well is probably a plus, because if Elliot and Mullins will be thinking about streamlined teams, it's not going to be the top notchers that will suffer. It will probably be 3rd or 4th strings, handicappers, stuff like that he might just leave out on the high class horses. So I think if you're betting Ante Post right now, I would, particularly in handicaps, I would probably treat the Irish with a bit of caution at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And that is our Ante Post picks for the week. That will do it for this week. I just want to thank Calum again for joining me.
Excellent. Pleasure as always.
Pleasure. We'll be back next week with a recap of what's happened over the weekend. We'll be taking fan questions as well, so we're going to post for fan questions all week, and hopefully we'll have a few to answer next week on the show. Thanks very much, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.